I don't know about you, but I really enjoy tarot and oracle decks that transport me into a whimsical or fairy tale world. And the deck that I'm going to discuss today, the Enchanted Förhäxa Tarot by MJ Cullinane, certainly does that. And it also happens to be my favourite tarot deck of 2024. So continue watching to find out more. But first, comment below if you also enjoy using fairy tale tarot and oracle decks, and let us know which are your favourites. There are many reasons why I like this deck, but I think one thing that stood out to me was the fact that MJ Cullinane had referenced some quite famous paintings in this deck, and as somebody who has studied art all their lives and explored images and looked at art history, it's something that really caught my attention. And later on in the video I will dig a little bit deeper and share with you some of the images that she has referenced in this intriguing and fascinating deck. But for now, let's start with a flip through. The introduction from MJ then. Hello and welcome to the enchanted land of Förhäxa, a word that means bewitched in Swedish. When I set out to create the artwork and the stories for the new tarot deck, my mind drifted to a magical place of fairies and mermaids. However, in my mind, fairies are not the stereotypical diminutive creatures spreading pixie dust, and the mermaids are closer to those found in sailor stories than Disney. You will also notice that the fairies and mermaids in this deck present as female. However, each character is non-binary and possesses feminine and masculine energy. Because of this, you will find that the pronouns within the guidebook are they, them. The balance of energy, however, is not always equal. For example, the magician holds more masculine qualities, while the Empress holds more feminine ones. In my world of Förhäxa, traditional gender roles and perceptions are human, and in this world, neither humans nor our ideas around gender roles exist. My goal when creating the Enchanted Förhäxa Tarot was to draw upon the stories and wisdom of the tarot while looking toward Nordic and Celtic folklore for inspiration. For example, the tower was inspired by Ragnarok's story of how the world was destroyed by a series of disasters so that it could resurface, bringing forward new life and possibilities. For the Hierophant, I took a bit of a departure from the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith deck and thought about how this energy would work in my world of Förhäxa, as they have no priests or churches. I was inspired by the story of Yggdrasil that grows in a sacred forest. This holy tree connects the 9 worlds, the forest is their church, and the tree represents their past and culture. The Enchanted Förhäxa Tarot possesses 78 cards with the Major and Minor Arcana, like a traditional Rider-Waite-Smith deck. However, the suits in this deck are named for the 4 elements, fire, water, air and earth, whereas the Rider-Waite-Smith deck has wands, cups, swords and pentacles. With all my decks, I aim to create a tool that helps you connect with your higher self and divine energy. Each card's meaning and energy are the focus of my intention while illustrating. It fuses the energy with the art. When you hold a card in your hand and look at the art, there is no doubt about what it means, how it feels, or the message the card wants you to know. Safe travels as you make your way through the mystical and enchanting land of Förhäxa. MJ. The Enchanted Förhäxa Tarot by MJ Cullinane is a Hay House publication, and it comes in a nice rigid box. We have information around each of the four sides with some details of the cards and some information on the back here telling us all about this intriguing deck. And when you open it up, you get your booklets, which is quite a good size, and of course the cards. Now you will notice that these cards are the size of a standard oracle card. This is one from MJ's Urban Crow oracle deck, and for comparison, here is a standard tarot deck. They are bigger cards. If you've got small hands like I have, that does make it more of a challenge for shuffling. The cardstock is quite thick, which can make it a little bit more cumbersome to shuffle when you're doing hand over hand shuffling. And if you're familiar with Hay House oracle cards, I'd say it was in keeping with what you'd expect to get from Hay House, so slightly thicker than normal. There is a little bit of flex in there if you like to do riffle shuffling or arch shuffling. I don't do either, simply because my hands are too small and I can't grip the cards enough to hold them in place to set them up for riffle shuffling. I can't see why you can't riffle shuffle them, but just be aware that they are a little bit thicker than some other decks on the market. Now when we open up the book, there's the usual information you'd expect to have, some other decks by MJ. Now this has been out a while now, and I think she's had additional decks out since then, including some indie decks which are going to remain indie. If you're interested in her work, then definitely check out her Instagram, and I believe she has a YouTube channel as well. There's the introduction where she talks about her inspiration, a little bit of information about preparing your deck, and some spreads that you can try. So we have the yes, no, maybe here, and the yes, no and maybe cards, the usual single card pull, and we have a fairy spread, questions that Major Arcana cards would invite us to consider. Then we go into each of the cards. So the book is quite basic, unlike say a rock pool publication where you get a picture, usually a colour picture for each card. You only get an image at the beginning of each of the suits, and then just a little bit about MJ Cullinane at the end here. There is quite a significant description here, and I really love the way that MJ describes the cards and the information that she has put in here. It's really quite beautifully written, and the insight that you get from these cards and from the energy that she's tried to invoke through the Förhäxa story is really quite different to any of the other decks that I have. A lot of work has clearly gone into creating this as a tarot system. For example then, let's have a look at what MJ says about the cover card, the Empress. The giver of life, the mother of the space that is Förhäxa, is the Empress. This nurturing and magnetic energy generously supplies the land with an abundance of love and beauty, asking only one thing, that you appreciate their actions. When in the company of this member of royalty, it is hard not to feel protected or loved, as they bring this powerful grounding energy that creates a connection between the ground and the heavens. Linger as long as you can, as long as the Empress allows you, because as long as you are here, you will sense the beauty of life itself. You will know when the Empress energy is near, because it lavishes good tidings to all and presents a feast for the senses to indulge upon. It is hard to be in a bad mood or display moments of unkindness when the Empress visits you, as they bring with them a tenderness that mellows, like how a mother's cares can soothe an upset child. Things to note about this deck then. Well, it is inspired by the Rider-Waite-Smith system. However, you would have noticed through the flip through that this is an elemental deck. So instead of cups, we have water. Instead of pentacles, we have earth, instead of swords we have air, and instead of wands we have fire. And there has been a change to the name of king. That's been replaced with elder. In addition to the king card being renamed as an elder, MJ Cullinane has renamed the Emperor card 4 to the Council of Monarchs. So typically we would have a more masculine figure in this card. Instead we have female presenting characters who are non-binary as identified by MJ in her book, but what they are doing is they're representing the 4 suits of a typical tarot deck. So we have the Pentacles, the Cups, the Sword and the Wand here, and I suspect that these represent the ideas and the qualities that we will need to sort of become masters of our craft and to harness, maybe in a more traditional sense, the masculine energy to make progress with our goals. Now, when looking at the court cards, MJ has made a stylistic decision to keep the colours the same for each of the characters of the court cards. So all of the elders, i.e. kings, are on a grey background. The queens are on a purple background. The knights have a turquoisey background. And the pages have a golden background. Now, what I particularly like about the court cards is not only do they have this unifying background colour, but that has been created by using these beautiful floral frames around each of the court cards, which I think is a really nice touch and a way of just identifying the court cards in your reading. Now, when I first got this deck, I was really excited, and just flipping through it for the first time, I was so excited, and it just felt like such a special deck. And I think that's predominantly just down to the artwork, which I absolutely love. And whilst flipping through this, I noticed that there was a lot of references to quite iconic pieces of artwork. So for instance here, and in fact this pile that I've just been flipping through, there are patterns which are very reminiscent of the artist Gustav Klimt, who is renowned for creating these beautiful golden and geometric patterns. These patterns are picked up throughout the deck on various items of clothing or backgrounds, and this one here, the Judgment card, is to me very reminiscent of quite an iconic piece of artwork by John Millais called Ophelia, which was part of the pre-Raphaelite movement. This painting depicts Ophelia, a Shakespeare character in the play Hamlet, singing before she drowns. The Lovers card here has most certainly been inspired by the three Graces included in Botticelli's La Primavera painting of the three young maidens dancing in a woodland. I've also looked at this image and used it to inspire some of my artwork, and it's actually the pose that I've used for my Three of Cups in my own tarot design. I absolutely love the original image, and I was delighted to see this in this deck. These are just a few examples of art references. There are other images in there that somehow seem familiar, and I'm sure I've probably missed some other ones that are in there. So if you've noticed any other images that you recognise, then drop a comment below. Now, not only do I really love the fact that MJ Cullinane has referenced iconic pieces of art throughout history, I just love the fact that she has included all creatures great and small, so from some of the bigger mammals like foxes and wolves, and I absolutely love this fox. The expression on his face is just priceless. We have reference to crows and ravens. Now, she's obviously renowned for her crow tarot deck, and it's always nice to see them in her artwork, and I absolutely love this one, the raven here doubling up as the chariot as this character charges through the landscape here. We also have the smaller creatures, and there's a lot of insect elements to be found in this deck. So we've got bees, but there's also butterflies, moths, ladybirds. And if you're a nature lover like I am, then this deck is a real visual feast to find all these little details in the background. The other thing I like about this deck is the colour scheme. Now, for some people, they might find that maybe it's a little bit subdued, a little bit muted, but that's the reason I really like this deck. So for me, it feels like a very grounded and earthy deck, even when we're dealing with the suit of water. There's a lot of orange and warm and earthy tones, and perhaps because I'm an earth sign, maybe that's another reason why I'm drawn to this. And something that struck me when I was preparing this video was that, in light of the fact that I find this deck very grounded, this card, the Knight of Earth, really sums up for me the overall energy of this deck. The Knight of Earth lives in a deep old growth forest where the land is humid and lush. It is their job to slowly break down the fallen trees and the bodies of animals who have passed and incorporate them into the soil. It is their job to slowly break down the fallen trees and the bodies of animals who have passed and incorporate them into the soil where they will be reborn. It is a long, slow process, but their dedication allows the forest to evolve and grow. While walking in the woods, you see a cluster of mushrooms on fallen rotting tree. That is the Knight of Earth at work. Now, this description goes on to say a little bit more, but I think it's a really nice metaphor for using tarot and oracle decks, this idea of using the cards, asking them questions to find out where we need to let things go that are no longer serving us and where we can grow. The message behind this card and this whole deck, and you know, all tarot decks if you like, that there is always this opportunity to grow, to let things go and to transform in any way which we desire. And the other key message from this card is that this is the card that helps you to navigate those tricky things, those little jobs, the stepping stones that we need to take in order to transform, in order to reach our goals. Now, despite this being quite a muted deck, throughout the deck we do have these moments of light and glowing, and I just love this one of the world here with the fairy letting go her lanterns, and it is that real sense of hope, of light coming out of the darkness. And I think for me, this image of the hermit here, it is quite a dark image, but this idea of going in, looking into the reflections of the pool here with the dark universe and night sky above you, it's, for me, is the indication that perhaps this deck could help us with some shadow work, for us to face some of those things that we find difficult by allowing ourselves to go in, to explore the shadows and to feel the darkness, but knowing that when we do that, we will gain some important insights. So to sum up, why do I love this deck so much? There are many reasons why I have fallen in love with this deck. And as you can probably tell, I really just love the artwork. I think the large size of these cards help to enhance the experience, and because they are a little bit bigger, it gives you more opportunity to really get absorbed in all the little details that MJ Cullinane has included. And in true fairy tale fashion, it does often read like a cautionary tale, and I think for that reason, personally, I feel that this deck would also work well as a shadow deck to help you explore maybe some of those things we don't really want to confront, but we know we should confront. And even though this deck quite often heeds a warning, I have found that if you're doing something right, it is very encouraging as well, and so I wouldn't be put off by that. I found this a really informative deck that isn't afraid to shy away from the truth, but often provides a practical solution to help you consider actions that you can take to get you out of your current situation. The readings often help to challenge the root cause of the problem. I also really love the fact that MJ has decided to assign her fairy tale beings as non-binary. I somehow feel by doing that, it has made the deck feel feel quite balanced, and even though they present as female, in her descriptions she does refer to the characters in the cards as they, which just seems to give a different perspective and a different experience that you don't get from any other tarot deck that I have worked with. And for me, somebody who has studied art all their life, the inclusion of some of the references to iconic pieces of art from art history, I think just really was the final thing that made this deck feel very special. And I think that's because she'd included images that have been so familiar to me over my time studying art, and it was a language that I understood of sort of compositions and poses of figures, so it really did amplify my enjoyment of using this deck and the experiences that I've had with it. It really upped my enjoyment of this, and it's a deck that I really do enjoy just flicking through and looking at the images time and time again. I could get absorbed in these images for hours if I had the time to do so. Thank you so much for joining me today as we have explored the intriguing world of the Enchanted Förhäxa Tarot. I hope you found this review useful, and let me know what you think about this deck. Have you used it, and what have your experiences been using my favourite deck of 2024? I'd love to know. If you did enjoy this video, I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a like, and if you enjoy tarot related content, looking at cards, looking at meanings, looking at the artwork, then please consider subscribing to my channel. It really does mean a lot. I'm Sally, and this is my channel, Vaudeville Manor, House of Art and Tarot. Until the next video, here are some other videos you can watch in the meantime. Bye bye.